They say forgiveness is strength, but sometimes it's just the setup for a final move. When I shook his hand, sealing a $1 million deal, they both thought I was a fool. Her secret lover, now my new business partner. Her, my wife, watching from across the room, sweat building at her temples despite the air conditioning. She smiled weakly. He grinned wide. And I? I smiled too. Because I already knew. I knew about the late-night phone calls, the business trips that turned into hotel nights, the way she started flinching when I touched her, and the perfume that wasn't hers lingering on her collar. But I didn't explode. I didn't scream. I watched. I planned. I waited. And when I offered him the deal, they both thought it meant one thing: forgiveness. He didn't know the contract was a ticking bomb. She didn't know I had already moved my money. Neither of them knew I was done pretending. They thought I was the same man she betrayed. But betrayal has a way of birthing monsters. And this time, I wasn't the prey. I was the storm. My name is Ayan Malik, CEO of one of the fastest-growing logistics firms in the city. Self-made, disciplined, loyal to a fault. I came from nothing. Built everything from scratch, brick by brick, deal by deal, sweat by sweat. And I did it all with one person beside me, Zoya. We met when I was just a junior analyst. She was working part-time at a cafe near my apartment. She spilled hot coffee on my shirt the first time we met. I remember the panic in her eyes, the rapid apology, the tremble in her fingers as she tried to clean it up. I laughed. She didn't, but that moment became the beginning of everything. Zoya was different. Smart, driven, quietly ambitious. She didn't care about my salary or my old apartment. She cared about my dreams. She'd wait for me during my late-night shifts, bring food, take care of my mother when I was too busy. We were a team. We built a life together. And when the time was right, I got down on one knee in that same cafe, with the same clumsy charm she fell in love with. Marriage with Zoya was never wild. It was steady, kind, predictable in a way that felt like home. I trusted her with everything: my passwords, my calendar, my life. She was my anchor, the one who believed in me when no one else did. And when my company finally turned the corner, when our third warehouse launched and investors started calling, I made her a partner. Not in name, not just out of love, but because she earned it. She helped design our branding, managed our charity drives, built connections with press and clients. She was more than my wife. She was the face of Malik Logistics. But somewhere in that growth, between quarterly reports and late-night meetings, we started drifting. I noticed it in little things: the way she stopped asking about my day, the way she'd turn her phone over when I walked in the room. At first, I blamed myself. Maybe I was too distracted. Maybe I forgot how to show her she still mattered. Maybe love, once mature, becomes silent. But I was wrong, because love doesn't forget how to look someone in the eyes, and it certainly doesn't hide behind locked screens and mysterious consulting meetings. Still, I kept quiet. I didn't want to accuse without proof. I wanted to believe we were just in a rough patch. Until the day I saw them, her in his car, his hand on her knee, both laughing, too comfortable to be innocent. And just like that, the man I'd once mentored, the rising tech entrepreneur I introduced to my world, was now the ghost living in the space between us. Kabir. He was the one I took under my wing, the one I invited to our dinner table, the one I trusted like a younger brother. And he was the one sleeping with my wife. But I didn't explode. Not yet. Because I realized something the moment I saw them together. They expected anger. They expected rage. But they wouldn't expect control. And so I smiled. And I started building something else. not revenge, a reckoning. The first time I truly knew, not just suspected, was at our 6th anniversary dinner. Zoya wore that emerald green dress I bought her 2 years ago. Her hair was curled the way I liked it. She even reached across the table and took my hand, smiling like the woman I fell in love with. But her eyes were somewhere else. I pretended not to notice. I smiled, toasted, told her she looked beautiful. She thanked me, said she loved me, then excused herself to the bathroom. That's when her phone buzzed. Twice. It was lying on the table, face down. I wouldn't have touched it if the name flashing on the screen hadn't been Kabir. Just one glance. That's all I allowed myself. Can't stop thinking about last night. I sat there stunned, heart hammering so loud I thought it would crack the wine glass in my hand. She came back minutes later, eyes shining, cheeks flushed. "I ordered dessert," she said sweetly. "Your favorite." I nodded, pretending not to see the lipstick smudge she'd wiped off clumsily. That night, as she slept beside me, curled into the pillow like nothing had changed, I stared at the ceiling. Every word from Kabir's message burned into my brain. Can't stop thinking about last night. So it wasn't a one-time mistake. This wasn't guilt. This was routine. She had moved on. Emotionally, physically, secretly. And she thought I didn't know. The next few days, I watched everything through a different lens. The perfume I didn't recognize. His? The sudden spa appointments? Cover-ups. The meetings at odd hours? Lies. But what haunted me the most wasn't the betrayal. It was how easily she still kissed my cheek. How effortlessly she laughed in front of me. How she talked about our future with a man she'd already left behind emotionally. I couldn't confront her, not yet. Because when someone breaks your heart, you can either beg for answers, or you can start writing the ending yourself. And mine was going to be unforgettable. The opportunity came faster than I expected. Kabir pitched a new AI logistics platform during a tech conference. Bold, flashy, ambitious. He was looking for investors. Big ones. Zoya casually brought it up a week later during dinner. "I ran into Kabir at the mall," she said, chewing her salad a little too fast. "He's doing really well." I simply raised an eyebrow. "Is he?" "Yeah. He's starting a new company. Something about logistics tech. Maybe you two could work together again?" She smiled, but her hand tightened on the fork. There it was, her test. She wanted to see if I'd bite. If I'd welcome him in. If I'd prove I was still the clueless husband she thought I was. So I did something better. I told her, set up a meeting. I'd love to hear more. That night she seemed relieved. Like the worst was behind her. Like the storm had passed. But little did she know, I was the storm. The night before the meeting with Kabir, I stood in the doorway of our bedroom, watching Zoya as she slept. She looked peaceful. Too peaceful. As if she hadn't gutted me silently over the past few months. I should have shaken her awake, demanded answers, thrown her lies in her face, text by text, glance by glance. But I didn't, because something inside me kept whispering, what if you're wrong? What if it's not what it looks like? What if she just needed someone to talk to, and it got complicated? That small, naive voice inside, the one that remembered her nursing me through fevers, staying up for my mother's chemo, whispering dreams into my ears during the cold nights of our struggle. It still wanted to believe in her. It still wanted to hope. But every time I saw her phone light up, and she'd quickly turn it over, hope died a little more. The next morning, I walked into the office and pulled the blinds closed behind me. I stared at Kabir's proposal on my desk. It was brilliant, innovative, potentially revolutionary, but it didn't matter. Not really. This wasn't business anymore. It was war disguised in a handshake. When he walked in, Kabir didn't flinch. He smiled, leaned in for a hug like nothing had changed. "Bye! It's been too long!" I returned the hug. Too long indeed. We sat. He pitched. I listened. Too calmly. Inside, I was screaming. "You sat at my table. You toasted my wedding. You asked me how to propose to your ex-girlfriend while you were screwing mine. But outside, I asked questions, took notes, nodded with interest. Then I told him, 'Let's do it.'" His eyes lit up. "Seriously?" I nodded. "One condition, I handle the funding, but I want a full financial audit of your setup." He paused. "Sure, yeah, standard protocol, right?" "Standard," I smiled. I wasn't just funding his startup, I was laying down the fuse. That evening, I returned home. Zoya greeted me at the door, her arms around my neck like old times. "You okay?" she asked, brushing hair from my forehead. "You've been distant lately." I stared into her eyes, trying to find the woman who once stood by me through hell. Instead, all I saw was someone who had become a stranger wrapped in familiarity. I forced a smile. "Just work stress. You know how it is." She hugged me tighter, and for a second I closed my eyes and pretended everything was still real. But even her embrace felt rehearsed now. I wanted to scream at her. Ask her why. Why him? Why now? Why ruin what we fought so hard to build? But the words stayed caged in my throat. What would be the point? She'd deny, cry, spin it, and worst of all, I might still forgive her. Because betrayal, when it comes from the one you love the most, doesn't just break you, it confuses you, twists your compass, makes you question yourself. Was I not enough? Was I too cold? Too distant? Too focused on success? One night, I sat alone in the study, staring at a photo of us on our wedding day. She was glowing, eyes sparkling with joy, and I remembered thinking, I won. I really won in life. Now I wasn't sure who lost more, me or the version of her that once meant those vows. My phone buzzed. A message from Kabir. "Appreciate the trust by Let's Make History." I laughed. Out loud. It echoed through the empty house. Trust. From a man who slept with my wife and still had the audacity to use the word. Zoya walked in just then, holding a cup of tea. "What's so funny?" I looked at her, still smiling. "Just a business joke. You wouldn't get it." She handed me the tea and sat beside me on the couch, resting her head on my shoulder. For a moment, I let her. Because in war, sometimes you stay close to the enemy. Just long enough to finish the plan. 2 weeks after the deal was signed, Kabir's startup became the talk of the town. Zoya acted like a proud supporter, constantly checking news updates, accidentally bringing him up at dinner. "Did you see the coverage on TechStream? Kabir's platform is making waves." I nodded. "He's got potential. Let's see if he can handle it." She smiled, almost smug, and I realized something terrifying. She thought she won. In her mind, I had accepted Kabir, forgiven her in silence. Now, she had the best of both worlds, her marriage intact and her secret romance protected. But that illusion shattered the morning I received the audit report. I was halfway through my espresso when it arrived. 68 pages. Detailed. Brutal. At first, everything looked fine. Then, on page 32, something stopped me cold. A fund transfer. From our shared account. To his company. 2 months before the deal. I stared at the screen, my fingers trembling. It wasn't a small amount. It was $80,000. Transferred discreetly in 3 separate payments. I checked again. Account holder, Zoya Malik. No label, no invoice, no justification. It hit me like a freight train. She wasn't just cheating on me emotionally. She was funding her lover, using our money, helping him behind my back before I ever signed that deal. That's when it all came together. The way she pushed his name, the eagerness to set up the meeting, the sudden curiosity about tech investments. She didn't just betray me in our marriage, she manipulated me in business. And that was war on a different level. I slammed the laptop shut, chest heaving. Minutes later, I was on my way home. I found her in the kitchen, chopping fruit like it was just another ordinary morning. The audacity, the calm, the normalcy, it made my blood boil. "I saw the audit," I said coldly. She froze, knife still in hand. "What audit?" "The one that shows you transferred $80,000 to Kabir from our account. Months ago." Her face went pale. She dropped the knife. "Ayan, I was going to tell you." "Really? Before or after you gave him my signature wrapped in a $1 million bow?" She opened her mouth. No sound came out. I took a step forward. "How long?" Tears welled up in her eyes. "It wasn't like that. At first we were just talking. He needed advice. Then, things just spiraled. I was scared to tell you." "Scared?" I laughed, bitter. "You were coaching him, Zoya, while sleeping next to me every night." She collapsed onto the floor, shaking. "I didn't mean to hurt you." "But you did. And you kept doing it. Over and over." Silence. Just her sobs and the hum of the refrigerator. I stared down at the woman I once thought I'd grow old with, and I realized something chilling. She wasn't crying because she felt guilty. She was crying because she got caught. And that changed everything. Because now, I wasn't just heartbroken, I was done. 3 days later, I invited Kabir to the office. He walked in, all charm and swagger, wearing a tailored suit and sunglasses indoors like he was already a tech mogul. "Bye," he grinned. "Heard the audit went well. Ready for phase 2? I motioned to the seat across my desk. He sat, relaxed. Too relaxed. I slid a file across the table. He opened it. His expression stiffened as he skimmed the pages. "I recognize these transfers?" I said casually. He didn't answer. "You see, Kabir, I thought I was investing in your genius. Turns out I was just bailing out my wife's lover." That finally wiped the smirk off his face. "Ayan, look, I didn't plan for this to happen." "No?" I cut him off. "Then what was your plan? Sleep with my wife while I built the empire? Then take my money and call it a partnership?" He leaned forward, desperate. "It wasn't about the money. Zoya believed in me when no one else did." I stood slowly, locking eyes with him. "She believed in you enough to steal from me, lie to me, destroy our marriage." He went quiet. "You think I'm a fool?" I hissed. "You both do. You thought I'd never find out." Kabir opened his mouth to respond, just as the door creaked open. "Zoya." She stood in the doorway, pale, trembling. "You called me?" I turned to her, my voice calm. Too calm. "I wanted you to see the man you risked everything for." Her eyes darted to Kabir. "Ayan, please don't do this here." "I gave him a $1 million deal," I said, voice rising. "He thought it meant I forgave him. And you," I pointed at her, "you thought it meant I forgave you." Kabir tried to stand. "Let's talk privately." "No," I snapped. "Let's finish this now." I walked to the window, staring out at the skyline. You know, I used to think betrayal was loud, explosive, a scream in the dark. I turned back to them. But it's quiet. It comes dressed in perfume, in polite smiles, in borrowed money, and midnight texts. Zoya was crying again. "It was a mistake, Ayan. I got lost. I didn't mean to destroy us." I tilted my head. "You didn't destroy us. You destroyed yourself. I just finally saw who you are." She stepped forward. "Can we at least talk? just the two of us." I laughed softly. "We've talked enough. I listened while you lied. I gave you the benefit of the doubt. You used it to fund your affair." Kabir spoke up. "Look, man, if you want your investment back—" I cut him off with a glare. "I don't want it back. I want to watch your company crumble under the weight of its lies. Because, you see, I didn't just fund you." I opened the second drawer of my desk and tossed a thick folder onto the table. "I now own you." Kabir's hands shook as he flipped through the legal amendments. You made me sign over control?" Page 4. Emergency clause. In case of financial misconduct or fraud tied to shared accounts, guess what? Zoya's unauthorized transfers triggered it. Zoya gasped. "You set us up!" "No," I said, finally sitting down. "You set yourselves up. I just stopped protecting you." Silence. Thick. Suffocating. Then I stood again and walked to the door. "You're both free now. No more secrets. No more lies. And soon, no more company." They didn't follow me. Because for once, they both knew. I wasn't bluffing. I was finished. And when I walked out of that room, I wasn't the betrayed husband anymore. I was the storm they never saw coming. The story of Kabir's company crumbled faster than I expected. Within 2 weeks, the financial media picked up on the sudden leadership change and whispers of insider dealings. Investors pulled out. Regulators started sniffing around. I didn't need to say a word. All I had to do was let the truth breathe. And truth? It's more destructive than fire, because it burns slowly. Kabir tried to call me, dozens of times, left me voice notes, texts, even a pathetic apology email at 2 a.m. begging me to spare what's left. I never responded. I wasn't interested in revenge anymore. I was interested in peace, the kind that comes after the storm, when you've finally burned down the last illusion and can see clearly again. Zoya moved out a week later. She didn't cry. She didn't beg. She just packed her things in silence and left a note. "I don't expect forgiveness. I don't expect to be remembered kindly. I only hope you heal faster than I destroyed you. I'm sorry." Funny. She said sorry after she'd ripped our lives apart, after she handed my trust to another man and expected me to keep smiling. I didn't need her apology. I needed the mirror she held up to my life, because for the first time in years, I saw what I had become. So obsessed with success, I stopped noticing the cracks in my own home. But I didn't regret it. Not anymore. Because when people show you who they really are, you either shatter or you sharpen. I chose the latter. 3 months later, I sat in the new office of my private fund, sipping coffee while a young startup founder nervously pitched his vision. I listened, really listened. I didn't just look at numbers anymore. I looked at people. Because now I understood something money never taught me. Character is the true currency. As the meeting ended, I walked outside and felt the sun on my face. The world hadn't ended. I hadn't collapsed. I had shed. The lies, the pain, the people who thought love was a transaction. I took out my phone and opened an old photo album, one with Zoya in it. Then, without hesitation, I deleted it all. Memories don't deserve storage space when they're built on betrayal. Just then, my assistant walked over. "You've got a call from the Red Crest Group in London. They're offering a merger discussion." I smiled. Kabir thought he won $1 million deal. Zoya thought she controlled the story. But what neither of them realized is, the best revenge is living better without them. As I walked back inside, I passed a mirror in the hallway. I stopped, looked at myself, and for the first time in a long time, I didn't see the betrayed man. I saw the man who survived it, the man who rebuilt, the man who would never let love blind him to betrayal again. And just like that, everything I knew about trust, love, and loyalty was rewritten, not by their actions, but by my choice to rise beyond them.